What's up, CHFFL? Welcome and thank you for your patience starting a little bit late here. I was on the phone with my loving mother and went a little bit long. Let's dig right into it though. Week 11, 2022. This has been a very exciting CHFFL season, in my humble opinion. I'm happy to still be in the mix. Had some tough injuries for some people, some tough losses for some people, but a lot of teams still right there in it. And we have a lot of interesting matchups this week. In week 10, West dropped that tight one against Marty. Really recommend, if you have not gone and listened to the Two Tight Ends podcast this week, Grant and Bill did a great job going over what exactly went wrong in that game. It's really tough for Wes after he just traded a 5th-round pick for Chris Godwin to try and put himself in there, and he gets what he needs in terms of help with Banis dropping a game, but then he drops the ball on his own. Swan remains on top, speaking of the game with Banis, 150 points, and this has just been the year of Swan. He is doing a great job week in and week out and continues to. Mark survived, and I guess that's what good teams do. I sure wish I could get a win with less than 100 points like Bill and Mark have, but I have not been able to get that luck. Mark with a sub 100 point win in week 10. We have a couple of trades to review this week. Swan lost Dallas Goedert and then went out and got a fairly comparable replacement right away. And I finally bought. After declaring that this was an all-in year for me, I missed out on the Adams again, on the Diggs. The price of the market has been strange, but I finally went out and got a piece to help Derek and I solidify our roster. Let's start with Swan. Traded, might have replaced that slide accidentally. Swan traded an 8th and Tyler Conklin for for George Kittle from Max, because Goddard went down with the injury. Max gets the 8th, decent replacement, just sent back his 15th. I think this is the best replacement Swan can hope for to get George Kittle. I feel like this price was low, and I guess the market isn't quite making sense to me. Grant must be punting tight end. After he went out and bought Diggs, he can't get. See, this is the tight end problem. I was just looking at this. If you sort by points per game average at tight end this year, you of course have Kelsey. You have Mark Andrews, who so far has been a tier below Kelsey because he's posted 3 duds. He's had some injuries. Hopefully coming off the bye, he's going to be Mark Andrews the rest of the way. But still, that's 2 that you're not getting. You got Hawkinson, who looks great with Minnesota, but Wes isn't giving him up unless Wes decides to sell at the deadline. Maybe that's what Grant is hoping for, because then Ertz is out, Goddard's out. Your next tight ends are Freiermuth and Dulcich, and the guys who are just there because they're there. Njoku, who Max has. So I'm just surprised that Max couldn't get more than a 4 for Kittle, who is that next tier. But it is what it is. He got the 8. I say 4. I'm surprised he couldn't get more than an 8 for Kittle. I think Kittle should have been worth like a 5 or a 6, especially after we've seen these receivers going for seconds. The market is fairly inflated right now. Speaking of, let's move on to, I went out and got a wide receiver. I said last week that I thought DK Metcalf was a really valuable piece for Marty to get in the Diggs trade, because he's a wide receiver too, pretty consistently. Grant's not interested in Kittle because he's an offensive lineman, supposedly. Hey, you do you. Who are you starting at tight end this week? We'll come up to it. How many points did you get out of the tight end spot last week? This is my thing. I know there are only going to be 3 or 4 teams tops who are okay with their tight end position. But I just would think if you're in an all-in year, you want to be okay with your tight end position. And I bet you're hoping that Wes slips up more so that you can go after Hawk. That's my theory. Anyway, so I got DK for a 6th-round pick, so you had Chris Godwin go for a 5th plus some keepers. I was pretty happy with this price. but I also thought it was fair. Metcalf does not have the ceiling or the floor of Godwin. There's definitely a teardrop there. Oh, I'm not. Swan thinks I'm mad that he didn't overpay. I'm not mad. I think you did a good job. I think it was a good pickup for you, and I think you've run your team well. You've done a good job in the keeper era, Swan, of not overpaying, and I admire that. And I don't think you ripped Max off either. Parker makes a good point, kind of to what I'm saying. He got a 6th-round pick for Lazard and a 6th-round pick for Juju. It just isn't consistent with what the market has been this year, and I think you did a good job, Swan, at buying at the right time. I think if Max maybe had held a little more, let Kittle, if Kittle gets a good scoring week, get closer to the trade deadline, people are a little desperate. Okay. Yeah, Grant does seem, I think Grant is, it's interesting. I want to talk to Grant about this whole tight end situation for him. Maybe I'll have to have a guest, or I'll have to go back on the 2 tight ends one week. Anyway, I'm happy with Metcalf. I think Marty has to be happy with a 6. We really need receiver depth. It is killing us that Michael Pittman has not been what we traded for him to be, and that Keenan Allen has been hurt. Brandon Cooks, not what he's supposed to be. Allen Robinson, not what he's supposed to be. I think Metcalf is at least someone we feel comfortable starting, and Christian Watson, good again on Thursday, is going to be at wide receiver 2-ish going forward. So I think this has been a big improvement for Derek and myself. Marty, though, this is basically part of the Diggs trade. So now Marty has essentially traded Diggs for a 2nd, a 5th, I think, and a 6th. Really good value for him. Kind of punts. It's interesting that this came out after the 2 tight ends podcast this week, where Grant thought that Marty still had a chance at the playoff. Marty's still selling, and this makes his team weaker. I think Marty is calling it for the year. He thinks even if he gets into the playoffs, he's running into one of these super teams, and it's just not going to go his way. Waiver report for this week. Dawson Knox, Swan picks up for $4. This was before the Kittle trade, so trying to find something there. Grant spends $3 on rookie Trey McBride. That's who you're starting this week. And maybe he's going to be the guy for Grant. I don't think so. Parker, $1. Juwan Johnson. Everybody trying to figure out tight end position. We had a couple after Wednesday waiver pickups. No competition for any of these, by the way. At this point, everybody's really sitting still with their team. They maybe like one guy. There haven't been, and this tends to be how it is in the later part of the year, which is why early in the season, if you see somebody on waivers who has a good week and their value is climbing, you should be willing to spend all of it, because there aren't that many guys later on. Mark picks up Jarvis Landry for $1. Banis takes Danny Dimes for $3. I am surprised. I did not have enough to do a full Eng's top available segment this week, but I always give my notes away. I'm really surprised nobody picked up Nico Collins. We don't have a spot for him unless we were just to straight up drop Brandon Cooks, but Nico Collins is a 2nd-year player, so you could keep a potential keeper in the 8th round who got 10 targets last week, but improving, a young quarterback. I'm surprised that Nico Collins is still out there and available. All right. Now, let's get into predictions. Last week I was 4-2, and I wanted to start having in my slides here because I'm not doing the prediction slides. Go through all of mine, what I hit and what I missed on. I was 4-2, bringing me to 44-16 on the season. I correctly said that I would beat Max. I called the Marty over Wes, even though that game, razor thin. I had Grant over Parker, obviously. Bill over Stan, I was happy with that call. Bill played another really good game. And my misses were that I thought Minnie would beat Mark. Of course, my logic was right that Mark looked like he was going for a dud week. He got less than 100 points. Minnie just had more of a dud. And then I missed the game of the week where Swan held off Banis to it's the year of Swan in the Smut Hut Conference. Bill was your team of the week. Banis, of course, a big dud game, and Stan dropping to Bill puts him in a really tight spot. Stan needs to start making a game up here pretty quickly. Wes, because Banis dropped a game, still has hope. Just disappointing he couldn't gain on Vanis. All right, let's switch over and look at this week's games. Glad we got a good bit of chat going. Take a quick second to check in there. Grant says it's McBride time. He doesn't think that McBride's going to be his guy going forward. And Swan, yeah, Keenan Allen might play today. I am really happy. Derek and I have been texting all morning, though, about do you trust a hamstring for an 8 o'clock Sunday game? I think we're leaning towards not playing him. And actually, this transitions quite well to our games for this week. We're going to start with Minis, Kanye, Kitty Killers versus my Atlanta Pipe Burst, because our game of the week is going to be in the Smut Hut Conference. Yeah, Keenan Allen, I don't think we're going to be able to trust him tonight. He already re-aggravated this hamstring outside of a game, just in practice. So I'm not, we're looking at like, oh, we could sit Allen Robinson and have Dulcich in the flex just in case. No, we're not going to do that. See. This game, Minis, Kanye's Kitty Killers 2024 versus my Atlanta Pipe Burst. We're, of course, at 6-4. Mark, 2-game lead in the MAGA conference, but it feels very tenuous with the Cooper Kupp injury. Mini just about out of it at 3-7. We both had one Packer on Thursday, Christian Watson. It was a gut call to start him after he had his blow-up game last week, thinking maybe that was a fluke, but no, he got 2 more touchdowns, 21.1 points to Aaron Jones' 16. Jones being one of Mini's really only 2 big weapons that you're really concerned about, so it feels great to outscore him. We're projected pretty high this week. I have not won Team of the Week in a long time, and this week it's finally possible. I mean, seasons. I mean, I didn't win one last season, and I haven't won one this season. Fantasy Pros has this pretty close. They give us a 91 score for the week, which includes us. This was funny to me, so we're going to look at it. Flexing Dulcich. I mean, Allen Robinson has had an awful season, but no Cooper Kupp. You figure he's got to get at least 8 targets just by default. They have Mini at an 86, so they have this being a close game. But with that Thursday outcome, I think we can. I feel pretty confident picking Derek and I to carry this one without spending too much time on this game. I want to go over next. I want to go to Lady G's Beard versus the McConnellsville Mutineers. This is big. We got Mark at 8-2, Bill at 6-4, can pull within a game with another win here. And projected Bill to win on ESPN and projected to win on Fantasy Pros because, of course, Jamar Chase already ruled out for this week? I thought for some reason there was a chance this would be the week he came back. But I guess not. Yeah, he's already been ruled out, so no Chase. And, of course, Kupp is probably missing the rest of the season, I figure, because the Rams have just not been good. And if they're not going to make the playoffs, there's no point in starting Kupp after a surgery. DeAndre Swift, disappointing with that split with the Jamal Williams backfield, has been a storyline we've been following. Last week I said I would be really interested to go back and look, and last week Williams outscored Swift again. So, yeah, Mark's team is running on fumes. You got Kyle Pitts in there, and Zeke's going to be back. So many storylines here with Mark, of course. Got the Pollard is better than Zeke. Why doesn't he play more? You got Kyle Pitts. Everything about him is hilarious. And then over on Bill's side, Justin Fields just been lighting it up on the fantasy scoreboard. Still can't make the Bears a good team. I still contend he's just not a good quarterback for the whole throwing the ball to receivers things. But this is fantasy football, and if he's going to run 15 times a game for 100 yards, you're really happy with that. Austin Eckler, the steady backbone of Bill's roster all year. Cole Kmet has paired very well with Fields. We'll see if that continues. He's missing Mike Evans on a bye and not going to start the Gus Bus. He doesn't really need to, but he's not going to start the Gus Bus in the first game back. But compared to what Mark is missing, This just looks like one on everything you look on paper. It looks like Bill's going to take this one. And that's going to, if I win too, now you have two teams right behind Mark. All that's going to be close. So I am taking Bill to win this one. And now let's go over to Stan. Because if Bill wins, if I win, we're one game behind Mark at 7-4. That means that Stan really needs this one. I am seeing your chat. I'm waiting till we get to that game to respond to it. And this game is close on ESPN and on Fantasy Pros. So this is where my focus is in the MAGA conference this week. Stanley's Grab Her by the Pelosi sits at 5-5 against Max's Super MAGA. It's not a joke at 3-7. A little inside baseball here. We're looking to buy a wide receiver. I was looking at Deebo Samuel and DK Metcalf, and part of the reason, just a little bit, that I went with Marty is because I wanted Max to have Deebo to hopefully give Stan a loss this week and knock him out and really just secure that playoff spot for the Atlanta Pipe Burst. Stan got Pollard there with Zeke coming back. Should still be magical. Pollard's whole thing is that he's efficient per touch. Cortland Sutton, I saw that Denver is going to be switching who's calling the plays. And when your guy is really disappointing, change is always good. Yeah, Stan, it is just mean, but hey, this is a competition. T. Higgins, back now after that trade. Were they on the bye last week? Either way, I still like that Higgins and Pierce pick up for Stan, even though he had to give up Henry. And I think that has a chance of paying off for him this week. We see he is keeping Drake London on the bench. Stan's team is deep now. And wanting Gibson in there. Let's see, who does Fantasy Pros think that Stan should be flexing? Because that's interesting to me. Grab Her by the Pelosi. Mike Williams. Oh yeah, Mike Williams is going to play this week too. So Higgins, Sutton, and Mike Williams, the experts, think that Stan should be starting. Drake London, also a very viable option. Antonio Gibson, also a viable option. So Stan is deep. He has the legs to go. Burrow, of course, capable of putting up big quarterback weeks. Stan still has a roster to compete. Let's look over at Max's side. What does he still have left? He hasn't really he sold Kittle. Conklin's a decent replacement. Max's team is still mostly intact. People are not biting on, I think, what Max is going to be asking for Jacobs. I think the part of the trade cycle where you could get a second round pick is just gone. I think Grant was willing to spend it. And I think Adams had that price set earlier. So Banis was willing to spend it to match Grant. I don't think you're going to get a second round pick for Josh Jacobs if that's what Max is asking for. So he's probably going to keep him up until the deadline where he sees whatever he can get. Herbert, been disappointing. It would be great if Herbert gets Williams and Keenan Allen back this week. Make that quarterback a little more even. Of course, I said Deebo Samuel still in there. Starting Garrett Wilson. Max missing Mostert, who has been a really steady start. And it looks like he has Tony on the bench right now. Flexing James Robinson is a bit of a question mark for me, a bit of a risk. Did he play yeah, 15.3 last week. I didn't realize that he scored so many points last week since being traded. That's interesting. Who does Fantasy Pros have starting here? I'm going through these games a lot slower than I normally do because this is just such a pivotal week, I think. All of them now are going to be this way until a couple more people are actually eliminated. So Fantasy Pros likes Wilson being in there. And yeah, they would have Tony in the lineup over Jacobs. But I can understand starting over Robinson. I can understand having Robinson over Tony. These are two teams with these starting lineup questions. And who do I think is going to take this one? I like Stan here. I think Stan's going to take it. But boy, it could go either way. It's a shame Max has a really decent lineup, and he's pretty much out of the playoffs. But it's what it happens sometimes. This has been a very competitive year. I think you can really tell having all 12 guys be very active and very into it has made this year more competitive. But I am taking Stan here. Oh, and what should be a very important game. Now let's go over to the Smut Hut Conference. We're going to look first at Banis Space Jam 2 against Parker Schindler's Fist. Stan asked in chat, does Brad miss the playoffs? No. I don't think so. Even before the Metcalf trade, I didn't think Marty had a shot. Wes has a chance. If I had to put it, I'd put it at 90%. It's Banis, 10% it's Wes, 9% it's Wes, 1% it's Marty. But no, I'm not going to take that hot take. I think Banis makes the playoffs. My hot take would be that it's not a question. We're going to get 2 games. We're going to see this week and next week, and we're going to, okay, he's in 100%. Not going to be a question. The MAGA conference is going to come down to the last second. I don't think the Smut Hut will. Banis got 29.36 from Derrick Henry on Thursday. Henry is just such a monster. And that's why I like that trade for both teams, because Stan got plenty of value, but Banis loaded up to be able to match Grant and Swan's firepower, high end. AJ Dillon, 3.3. Parker, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on Dillon. As someone who's riding him in Dynasty, and I know you are really big on him as a keeper, what happened? I mean, I know Aaron Jones is good, but I thought that Dillon was too, and it just this year has not panned out. Otherwise, Banis needs to plug somebody in at tight end. Does he have a tight end on the roster right now? Andrews. Oh, Andrews will come in. He'll have to drop somebody. He has Danny Dimes, everybody's favorite streamer, in at quarterback with Brady on the bye. I don't like to spend too much time on the Parker games. We all know Parker has done a fantastic job of selling, but it's not really a competition right now unless Banis drops the ball for a second straight week. I'm going to take Banis here. Parker thinks that the problem with Dillon is that a bad offense requires them to lean on one back over the other. And I guess I have to accept that. I liked the world where Jones would go out as like a slot receiver more often, but it seems like that's just not what they've done. Stan has another theory that Dillon's quads simply got too big. Can't discount anything. So it's open to possibility. I just hate to see that wasted talent. All right. Now let's go to the next Smut Hut game, which is Marty against Swan. Marty's thrusters against Swan's inappropriate cook name. He's just baiting me every week now. Marty at 4-6. Swan, of course, at 8-2, having a killer season. Marty, what I want to see without Metcalf. We have Scary Terry and Amari Cooper. Still a decent core there of wide receivers. Marty's done a good job managing his team through this sell. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I'd call that boomer bust with no Juju, and I think no Mecole Hardman for Go Dogs for Kansas City. That could be a good start for him. Running backs, Singletary, McKinnon, not the strongest at this point. You don't see much of a reason that Swan would feel worried here. He's missing 2 running backs, Fournette and Walker, to bye weeks. But Swan, forgive me, Swan's team is so deep. So you have Dalvin Cook, and you have to start Montgomery, who I know Montgomery hasn't been what Swan drafted him to be, but he's startable. CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Hopkins, now Kittle at tight end is a perfect swap in for Goddard. No reason to think Swan drops a game here. Swan could be pushing one of the historic best seasons we've ever had. I certainly expect him to break the scoring record because of fractional scoring. And we can try and go in and see historically where that lines up were you to take away fractional scoring. But Swan's team's too good to bet against him, and I take him here. For our final game, our game of the week, and really what could be a great one, Wes is Pokeballs and Pussycats at 4-6 against Grant's Hertz team. 10.7 for Wes from Lazard. Good, fine. Not dropping a 0, and it's going to let your higher upside guys, your Ramondre Stevens, your Patrick Mahomes, have their chance. Your TJ Hawkinson. Now, I'm going to narrow in because it's been the theme of this video. What is the scoring difference between TJ Hawkinson and Trey McBride? It's going to be very important for this. Grant, of course, the better team on paper. ESPN has him winning by about 6 points. Fantasy Pros has him at a 92 and Wes down at an 87, but that's close enough. And Wes needs this upset to stay in that playoff race because Bannis isn't dropping a game this week. And he can get it. Chris Godwin on a bye, Rachaad White, who suddenly is a starter, on a bye. That's tough. Over on the other side, though, Grant, Waller, of course, on the IR, Etienne on a bye, Tyreek Hill on a bye. This is the time. This is the time. So Grant feels really good with Connor, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Diggs. It comes down to McBride and Patterson. Are they enough at the bottom of the lineup to boost Grant up here? I want to know what the chat thinks about this game. I'm calling the upset. I'm taking Wes over the projection, over the paper. I believe in magic. And I think my gut just is telling me that something's going to happen here. You got Stevenson and Carter playing against each other. Two teams that are going to want to pound the ball and run the ball. I like Wes to pick this up over Grant. I could be wrong. But that would really shake things up if Wes is still around for another week. Grant drops to 7-4. So you'll have 6-5, 7-4, 5-6 with 3 games left. And Swan will just be sitting there laughing at all of it. Let's get back over and see if I have any more chats to take. I don't think so. But now will be the time. I tried to reduce the latency on the chat so that people weren't still sending messages after the stream is over. Anybody have any other questions that they'd like me to address while I'm on here? Appreciate we have 5 views. This is the most live viewers and the most chat action we've had. I appreciate you guys sticking around the whole time, especially since I was a little late to start the stream. But it seems like everybody's good. Best of luck, everyone, this week. I hope you're all as intrigued as I am and enjoying everything as much as I am. And remember that a stitch in time will save you from having Thursday players in your flex. We will see you next week. Goodbye.